Hello, everyone. So, I've never done a panel before, so I'm gonna figure this out. So, I wanted to talk about the minorities in the fandom and how they are very much underrated and have a lot of problems. So, I wanted to introduce myself. I am One Bit J. I am from St. Louis, Missouri. I oh no sound. Oh, you can hear me. Okay, so I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. Really wanted to go to Megaplex this year to visit Florida for the first time. Wasn't going to happen, obviously. Um, so I am gender fluid or female most of the time. So I am also white. I do have a really good friend who's a trans male and is also black. So I was hoping they would join me today, but they are busy. And I was going to do this panel at Gateway Fur Meet, but it was canceled. Obviously, like every other con this year. So I wanted just to introduce the different ideas of people that are having struggle in the fandom with their identity, such as their race, their ethnicity, or their gender. Most of the fandom is, as you know, is a gay male that's white. And so a lot of your makers are of different ethnicities. So I wanted to bring awareness and maybe have a discussion about like what your stories are. My stories is I've been outcasted as a female. I've had a lot of good friends as a female, but I've also just been like pushed to the side and ignored and all that. So it's been up and down. I also get flirted a lot by the straight males when I'm already taken. So it's just I get treated as like a toy more so a person. So I wanted to hear what you guys have to say about what you've experienced if you are a different, you know, ethnicity, different gender that's not your typical gay male in the fandom. So I mean, I'm I've experienced it a lot. Also, the fursuits. There was a fursuit that had breasts as well, and they were banned from a few cons because they were wearing had a breasted uh suit. So that's another thing, like normalizing that is not a sexual thing. It's just part of the body of a female. So that's another story I've heard. That would happen a while back ago, I think like last year. Another thing is there was a post made a couple months ago from another female in the fandom of how we were treated differently and we want to be recognized like we're even though we're different, we want to be part of the fandom as much as anybody else. Also, the recent riots of the fandom or outside the fandom that we've had for Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of people that have been saying all lives matter. So it's another discussion that yes, while all lives do matter, we're trying to focus on the black lives that have been taken away from us and not recognized for being just a normal human being. They're just being pushed aside and being shot at or being harassed or being looked at differently just for the skin color. It doesn't matter. We're all part of the fandom. We're all wanting to be in this fandom for dressing up as cartoon characters. It doesn't matter what the person looks like underneath the suit. That's interesting. I've not met somebody who's an intersex person. it should not be treated as a fetish. It should be treated as a gender. Kind of like I took a gender studies class in college, and we separated sex and gender. Gender is more your all those different genders, like gender fluid, non-binary, and all that. And your sex is male, female, intersex. It's what you're born as. And then your gender is what you identify as. That's how my teacher separated it. So I tried to separate the two different things as, yes, we were born, like I said, like for me, I was born as a female. Like I have the female parts, but I identify as gender fluid because I sometimes like to be a male, sometimes I like to be non-binary. Sometimes I like to be, female. It just depends on my mood, which is how gender fluid is. There's non-binary, which you like to be, you like to just be a separate gender. And then there's the male and female. But there's also your sexuality is what you're interested in. And that's got to do with, pansexual, asexual, demisexual, bisexual, straight, gay, lesbian, all that. So I separate sex, gender, and sexuality is different. Well, people like to keep those clumped together, and that's what gets confused. And that's how my teacher explained it. My teacher was awesome. Okay, so people, I would consider, yeah, there's a million ways to be intersex, but how my teacher in college described it, she described it as male, female, and intersex for the sex. It's not really your gender, it's as you identify. It's the way you were born. So intersex is the way you were born. You can be born with different ways. It's just a category just to make it simpler for people to understand that sex and gender are two different things. But I like that the way you're saying is that it's not a fetish thing, and it shouldn't be. Yeah, that's what I thought intersex was, but I've also heard that people have been born with boobs as the same as genitalia of the male. So I've heard different ways of being intersex, but I'm not sure. It would be really interesting in light of Delta if you could, because I think intersex is a very interesting topic that people just, the she-male of the, I'm not trying to get into sexual things, but like she-male and all that. It shouldn't be a kink at all, and it is to an extent, and it just shouldn't be. That's not what a kink should be. It shouldn't be something you can't help in a way. But people do like it as a fetish, and it's sad because these people don't get to choose what they want. They were born that way. So that's why I try to stick with what sex is what you're born with, and then gender is what you identify as, because it keeps the thing separate. Because when they ask you on, like, I think they should ask you on your driver's license and all that, I think they should have way you identify as sex and the way you identify as gender, because I think that makes sense, so people have an idea of what to call you whenever they read your license or they read your, birth certificate and all that, because you don't get to choose what you feel like what you want to be when you're older. You don't get to, sometimes you just don't stick with what you are, and it's not fair to people that are trans that were born in the wrong body to stick with sex when their sex should be able to be changed. I think sex should be able to be changed as well as gender. So it's one of those topics that are quite complicated. And it was very interesting to take a gender studies class in college because we did a lot of discussing, and there was a trans male in the class as well as me as who was gender fluid, and then there was a lot of cis females and cis males in the class. And it made for a very interesting conversation about all the different genders and stuff. But I think that being different makes the fandom unique. This is why I love having trans people as friends, because I can ask them questions like, how did you become trans? Like, how did you know? Because to me, right now, I'm 23 and I'm still figuring out what my gender is. I never figured out what. But, like, I agree to an extent that sex shouldn't form a medical point of view, but that's how my teacher described it, and that's kind of how I believed it for a little while. But sometimes I just, yeah, I definitely agree that we should not make intersex as a fetish. Sex shouldn't be changed to an extent. It should be changed for people who are trans so that they can be so they can become what they are. So I think that, like, on your license, if you were born a male and you want to be female, I think that they should be able to change it from male to female because that's what they identify as. But to an extent, you kind of can't. You can do that, but that's hard to do. It's hard to change anything on your license other than your weight and height and your address. But as I was saying, I feel like that we should not. We should explain that being part of your body, like being part of this fandom, is what makes it everybody unique. We are all kinds of things, and we should recognize the people that are different and help brighten up their thing. I really haven't heard of very many conventions that have had a guest of honor that was a different race than we were. There always been, your Majira or your More for Less or your big people. But, like, I have friends that are really good artists that are black or they're trans and stuff, and they aren't. But I think they should be more recognized for being the underdog in the fandom and in life. I just don't see that many guest of honors that are different races, different genders very often. Like, I really want to see Ash Coyote, who made the fandom film. She's trans. I would love to see her as somebody who's a guest of honor for a convention, because it bring up more trans people into the fandom, and they can feel like, oh, well, if I'm trans, I could be somebody. It's just they need a role model for them, and if you have guest of honors that are of those different types of people, then you get people that stand up and become more out in the fandom about who they are and can be proud of that. So I really want to see more guest of honors that are of different races and genders, to be honest, because my local con just chooses your average white male, and it's just not fair that they do that when there's so many other good people that are should be recognized, especially with, yes, the owner of. I do think that's a good idea, good point. The Fursona pens and Mall Apparel, I've heard of them, and I think that they should be recognized as well for their different companies that have been successful in the fandom. They should be recognized that they are who they are, and I don't see them as, like, guests of honors, and it's just really sad that there's so many good people out there, and we always choose the same people. If we always choose the same people, what are we doing in the fandom? We're not introducing new ideas and new people that could enjoy the spotlight. It's always those YouTubers, not to be offensive, but I know that Picari is a very good YouTuber who introduces a lot of people and a lot of identities as well. I like her, but there's other ones that just don't really introduce the idea of Black Lives Matter or trans lives matter or any of that. They just stick with their friends who are all white, and they just don't like explore and introduce more people. That's just my problem. It's just the guest of honor. It's just always the same people. Yes, you can share the audio in this panel. I don't mind. I would love more people to talk. Yeah, I love that it please feel secure. Like, I love that you feel that a black gay male can become successful. Like, I have gay friends that are in drag and all that, and they do awesome, like with money and all that, because they do that for fun, but they also do it for money. And like, it's just being able to know that you can make a company in a fandom or and just own a business and get more money, and just like being able to start something is amazing, because I live near the most dangerous place in the United States, and that's East St. Louis. And I've been there, and I see like nobody's starting anything, or they're just not trying. They feel like they're stuck. And I would love to see like entrepreneurs coming to that area and discover them. There could be artists there, there could be dancers, there could be people with big ideas, and they don't give them a chance because they're too scared to go into that area and figure out what's going on. They're just too scared to figure it out because they associate black people with crime, and it's just sad. Like, I love going to St. Louis. I love to meet friends and meet people of different races and ethnicities and genders. It's just, I love it because I love having all these friends. I have a really good friend who went to college with me who is, I think he's a gay black male, and he is like the best that we had at our college. He was PR, he would talk so well, he gave good speeches, he was just inspirational, and he lives in Chicago now, down in Crete, and he's so inspirational, and I just like could not say much more about it, but I don't want to identify him, but he's not in the fandom, but it's just he's so inspirational to me, and I follow him on Facebook, and I just think it's amazing that there's these people out there that are in these crime-ridden areas that could be discovered and turn into something that is, of something awesome. It's just hard that these people aren't discovered or are not given the chance, and they're stuck in these areas that are in loops that really the only thing you could get into is crime. I've watched these videos of like Drugs Inc. and like they just talk about how like the only thing you could get a job in is crime. And it's just not fair. Like, these people could be something so big and nobody's giving them a chance. Sorry for my rant, but this is the whole part of the panel. I just think that it should be like, there's just so much of these people that could be discovered, and I loved hearing that Persona Pens is Latina and trans, and Mall Apparel is a black gay man. That's just awesome, and I love the fact that I'm making a company right now with somebody who's from Venezuela, who's Latina, and she is so good at art. We've gotten so many just from advertising for one day, we've made over $100. Like, her art is so good, and she wants to come to the States one time. So it'd be so cool to open up like a panel about, Latina artists or I don't know how you can share.
There.
Oh, there we go. I figured it out.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Sorry to crash your panel.
No, I wanted this a discussion based. I love the fact
Okay.
that people can talk.
Okay. And I hate typing, so that's why I've started my mic. Regarding East St. Louis, I live in Springfield, Illinois, so I'm
Oh,
hour and a
you're
half.
not that far from me.
No,
I'm in
no.
I'm in Edwardsville,
Yeah.
so I'm
No, I've been to Edwardsville. I've lived in Collinsville and Fairview Heights
Yep, I'm
for
in that area. I
yeah.
went to college over in Lebanon, so
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, I was down there. I worked for an engineering firm, and then I worked for my current employer before a different position. But regarding East St. Louis, it's funny that you mentioned that because I worked for IDOT, Department of Transportation. But I initially started working for them down there, and I was rotated through different parts of transportation. So like maintenance and equal employment opportunity, et cetera, and so forth. And every time I was sent somewhere, they constantly sent me to East St. Louis. And I was like, why? Why do you keep sending me to East St. Louis? But I went there and I realized and I was there during the day, granted, I worked during the day, but it wasn't as scary as you think it would be. It really
right.
wasn't.
My college freshmen are supposed to go volunteer somewhere. Like they take them by bus to volunteers positions as part of your introduction to college. And they took us to East St. Louis, and we helped a house and cleaned up a house that helps after school kids get their homework done and stuff like that they couldn't. And it was like not a bad area, but it was East St. Louis. And I'm like, this is not bad as it was. And it was at night. It was close to nighttime.
And the one time something scary happened to me was the day before I was sent to a different bureau. But I was walking around the city. I have an hour lunch. Half of it I spend walking. And as I was walking around the city, never told my parents I was doing that because it would have killed me. But I was just taking my walk. And I look, and some really older white male is following me in his truck. And the first time I saw him, I assumed, okay, he took the wrong exit and he ended up in East St. Louis. Everybody does that. So I assumed he's just lost. So I keep walking and I turn around and he's there again. And I'm like, okay, how lost are you, dude? Why are you still near me? And the third time I get back to my building and he's sitting right there on a street that there's no reason to use that street. And it freaked the hell out of me. I went inside, I told security. But that was the one time that I felt unsafe. And it was some older white guy. It wasn't anyone black.
Exactly. I'm black. Yeah, I have more problems with white males stalking me as a white female than I do with black guys. Like that's the thing. And when you hear school shootings, what do you hear of? White males.
Yeah.
They make it seem like black people are more dangerous than white people. But when you think about it, it's more white people that are stalking, that are pedophiles. You don't really hear about black people being pedophiles or shooting up schools.
As many. No. I knew there was one school shooting. It might have been VTech, and I think the shooter was Asian, but that was about it. Even in my own school shooting at NIU in 2008, shooter was white and killed 5 people. But I also jumped on here to go back to the Black Lives Matter issue. And again, I am black and I am female. I'm also much older than most furs at 34. And there was something that bothered me. And I will say I spend way too much time on Reddit. The furry sub is one of my favorites. So I don't go to the deepest corners of Reddit, just safe places like the furry sub, the child free sub, etc. Right. But when BLM first really ramped up this time around after the George Floyd incident, I noticed that there were some artists, there were some individuals on Reddit that were posting about it. And they were saying, hey, I'm doing a special Black Lives Matter, art piece or YCH or whatever it is. And, if people who, I donate however much to a Black Lives Matter charity. Persona Pins made a Black Lives Matter pin and donated a bunch of that money to charity. And I really appreciated those posts. I appreciate seeing the support. What I didn't like was the fact that it seemed every post that mentioned Black Lives Matter got locked by mods. And I don't blame the mods. They're doing their job, but it just, people, like you said, with the whole All Lives Matter deal and other announcements like that, people just couldn't stay civil, and that meant the mods had to lock those posts. And it was frustrating to me because a lot of this happened in, a lot of it ramped up in June, which is also Pride Month, and there are an abundance of posts related to Pride Month. None of them ever get locked. And I understand that 80% of this fandom is LGBTQ+. So it is something close to their heart. It is part of who they are. That's why there is so much support for the LGBTQ+ movement. And there are plenty of us. I'm a straight ally. I've always been an ally to the LGBTQ. My issue is that why is Black Lives Matter treated differently? Like the LGBTQ cause, BLM is also a human rights issue. It should not be considered a political issue, but too many people seem to treat it as such. And I just wondered why people don't treat BLM the same way they treat Pride. There's more support for Pride. There's more support for animal shelters than there is for BLM, it seems. And I just wonder why that is.
And I have friends on Facebook that are LGBTQ, and they had more support for Black Lives Matter than I did see from my family that was your average white, straight person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I loved it so much. Mm-hmm. It was awesome seeing. I love seeing that the LGBTQ was being very supportive for the Black Lives Matter. And I saw more LGBTQ on Facebook and on Twitter supporting Black Lives Matter than I did with your average white straight
person. Yeah.
So I have a trans friend who is Black, and they are in my community, and they are so nice. They're amazing artists, and your guest of honors are not they're not your people that they should be.
They're not necessarily people of color. I agree.
You see mostly Majira. You see, not to be offensive towards them, but you mostly see Majira, Morpholess. You see your big people that are your Stormy Fulf. Like
Pocari's been invited to a bunch of things. Yeah,
right. But Bakari's different. She supports all that, but publicly, she supports them publicly. But you don't see all of them. But the other people don't support stuff publicly, and they just get invited to all these things. And I'm like, I have a local artist who could have been a guest of honor for my local convention and wasn't, and she's an amazing artist.
And I'm not sure how to remedy that. I know when, what's his name? Midwest Fur Fest, because that's one of the cons I can go to being in Central Illinois. That one is Gateway Fur Meet down in St. Louis.
That's where I go.
Yeah, that's a big one. I was supposed to do a panel this year, and then
I was supposed to do 3 panels there, and I didn't.
I was struggling with one, so I'll work on that next year. But for MFF, they came out and said, we support Black Lives Matter. Basically, what just about every group, entity, business, most of them have come out with, we support Black Lives because it looks good. But people were firing back at Midwest Fur Fest. So it's great that you support this. Now, what are you going to do to show us that you support this besides posting it on Twitter or whatever it was?
Exactly. For Persona Pins, that's a perfect example. They publicly said we support Black Lives Matter, and then they made a pin for it.
Yeah.
And they support and they donated money towards things. Like, that's what you should do. I want to see conventions say that they support it and then do something about it. And then what else? I know that other conventions did donate money towards other things, and it's just like so awesome. But but none of them do charities about for Black Lives Matter. They do charities for animals. I'm like,
Yeah.
we should be helping animal friends as much as we should be
Yeah.
helping our human friends.
I mean, I love animals to death. I am a huge animal lover. I have an angry hedgehog behind me sleeping. But I understand what you're trying to say, what you're saying, and I just because it's not just animal charities. Oh shoot, there was a guy named Dog Bomb. I didn't know who he
Dog
was
Mom,
until
yes,
I didn't know who he was until he passed away. But
I knew
apparently he
right
passed away of
before.
ALS.
Yeah,
Is that it?
ALS.
Oh.
He passed away from ALS. And there's people. I mean, there's they made persona pens of him. Like
Yes.
they publicly asked. I remember what kind of pen should we make and donate to, and everybody kept saying Dog Bomb, and that is like they are the best company I could say that is just supporting, everything going on. And they are located in Chicago.
Yes.
So like they're in like the midst of everything going on, like compared to St. Louis as well.
Yeah.
So it's just so awesome seeing a company in our fandom leading the charge and how companies should do it.
Hello, Anna.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Mike might be off. You might be muted.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
I know for my company, I actually do a few different things that aren't necessarily easily spotted. Like if you look at, I always have a book of different photographs of my work on the table. If you look at the front cover, I have what's called hobo codes.
Okay.
And it's all the icons of things my company supports.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh.
And
excuse me.
If you know an icon, you know what it means. I'll have people look at something and go, oh, what's this weird paw thingy with a circle around it? And I'm like, if you're not part of the community, I'm not going to tell you. And of course, it's the 5-paw for furry.
Yeah.
Or I'm actually removing the marriage equality sign and replacing it with the Black Lives Matter fist. Because at this point, we've currently won marriage equality.
True,
yes, we did.
So you know, time to update the list. And I also still have the rainbow and stuff like that on there. So I don't need repeated. And like on my business page, when the riots happened, I posted, listen, if you're at a protest and you feel like you're getting trapped, call me, message me, and you can roll up, clean up, get a change of clothes, and we will get you an alibi.
Wow.
And we did that for a few people.
Wow.
And I didn't ask questions. I didn't care if you were a protester, if you were law enforcement. If you needed just basic first aid, a change of clothes, and a shower, this is my address. Come at it.
Wow. That is awesome.
Another thing I want to mention is all cops are bad. I have family members that are cops. I've seen videos of cops saving babies' lives. So I want to mention, like, I have family members that think cops are bad. And I just think, like, they are humans too. I think there's some that are bad, but there's some that are saving lives out there. Like, nobody would jump up and go save a baby all of a sudden, or if there's a car accident, nobody would stop and check. It's always the cops that stop and check, or they go save the baby's lives or respond to a emergency situation. You're not your average person's going to stop them on the side of the road and make sure somebody's okay. It's your cops that usually stop and make sure that everybody's okay. So that's another thing is not all cops are bad.
And I, again, I'm African American. I have an African American family, immediate and extended, and none of us hate the cops. No one has that mentality in my family. I have some friends that are African American, and they're male as well, no one has that all cops are bad mentality. Though I know that is what some people think that we think, and it isn't. I try not to speak for all Black people because I'm one person, but there are very much bad cops out there, and the bad apple thing has been used a lot it's one bad apple here, one bad apple there. And I think it's a bit more than bad apples. At one point, you have so many bad apples that you need to take a look at your orchard. I think that needs to be seriously looked at. I think there needs to be a lot of change in how cops are trained, how certain procedures are done. With the Breonna Taylor incident, like the no-knock warrant, that needs to go away. And in some places it has, but there does need to be a lot of changes. But I'm never going to say that all cops are bad, but there are a lot of things wrong with that system.
Oh, yes.
And that needs to be fixed.
There's a lot of things wrong with our government. Not to get in political, because this is minorities, but there's a lot of things that could be fixed, but you can't say that all the people are bad.
No. That can never, ever happen.
Like, you can't say all white people, like all white gay males in the fandom are bad. There's a lot of supporters, but there is some that are not good that we just need to work on what we need to fix, especially in the fandom. We got to work on what is bad and bring out the good. Like, what good do we have? Well, we donate millions of dollars to ALS, to animal charities, we donated money
to all kinds of things.
We've done so much. Like, look at the good we've done.
We're a very givey fandom.
I know. It all depends on what area you're in. I'm actually from Tampa.
Okay.
And we have one district that I tell people all the time, don't cross the law in Ybor. And I've written to the police commissioner, I've written to the mayor, just going, guys, you really just need to shut down the police district there. Bring in fresh people for a little bit. Everyone that's in that district, I don't even care if it's paid. Let it be paid. Give them a month off to get mental health evaluations, to have a break, to just de-stress and just have a mental melt away, and then bring them back into the force.
Yeah.
Because an Ybor cop, I'm very lucky I haven't been arrested, because they are quick to arrest people. But they're never quick to arrest the right people.
I had that issue, and I will say I'm fortunate. I haven't had, excuse me, slowly dying, that many run-ins with the police. But I've seen, people in my family who have. I have friends who had. My brother's a black male, obviously. He's had some run-ins with the police, and he's never been in jail. He has nothing to address, nothing like that. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's just been stopped more times than he should be. I was in a car with my mom, and she was stopped, and it was one of the areas in Springfield where you're told, if you're black, don't drive through there because they will come after you. And lo and behold, she was stopped. No reason, no ticket, just he decided to stop and search her car, and she let him do it because I've got nothing to hide. But it was just ridiculous. And she believes part of it is because she's black, part of it is because she's a black person driving a Mercedes. Both my parents drive Mercedes-Benz. So yeah, even when you're a black or a person of color in general doing well, you're not immune to this. If anything, you get more scrutiny. Wait, why is this black person doing well? That's not what you people do. I better investigate this and see what's going on. See, it's hard for a lot of people to imagine, but it is very much true. And I thank God for the technology we have, especially in cell phones, that people of color and the LGBTQ, because they've been harassed and oppressed as well. We thank God for this technology that we can say, look at it. This is what I've been telling you for the past God knows how many decades. Yes, it's been happening. And now you get to actually see it. I think that's why George Floyd's incident just blew up the way it did, even though there is a string of black people that have been killed by the police, and they are male and female.
Exactly my point. It's just the fandom could do so much. The fandom could do so much just by helping bring light of what is happening, and we could be a point to where they can feel safe. Like, there's people that have commented on, there's posts all over Twitter, people commenting saying they don't feel safe at conventions. Like, that's sad. You should be able to feel safe at conventions. Like, there's females that have said that they don't feel safe at conventions alone. I mean, I should be able to walk up to any artist that I want in the dealer's den and order some art, as should you. You should be able to walk up and order anything you want and go fursuit and be accepted by everybody. But there's people that they're scared, and that shouldn't be happening.
I know for a little while there was actually issues at con for the Muslim community, where women were getting their headscarves snatched off.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I actually, because of that, is it next to me? It's not easily reachable. I actually carry now a proper Naquib scarf that if something happens in front of me, here you go, until we can get your original one back to you. Here is a scarf so you can be modest.
Oh my gosh.
My vendor tub, and my friend over here, if she decides to speak up, can vouch for it. My vendor tub is big enough, and we know this from practice, to fit a human being.
Wow.
So I've had somebody walk up going, I have someone stalking me.
Oh, wow.
Dumped out the tub, put her in it, and we rolled out the door.
Wow. Oh, wow. That is amazing. I'd heard of the people getting their headscarves snatched off. It's early. I can't English. And my question is, why? How does that headscarf affect you personally?
Fear.
Why do you? Yeah, I don't understand. It's with the headscarves. It goes back with like gay marriage and marriage equality. You know, I've had people say, it should be between a man and a woman, and da 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 da. Can you explain to me what happens to your marriage when two gay men or lesbian, whoever, get married? Please explain the second they say I do and they're pronounced a couple, does the preacher go over to you and snatch off your wedding ring and say, guess what? You're not married anymore because now they are. No, that doesn't happen. My question to a lot of these people is, how does it affect you? Why do you care?
Another thing I want to bring up, this happened to me a few days ago. I'm gender fluid and possibly trans male. I don't know yet, still figuring that out. My dad was like, when I told my dad I was going to wear a tux to his wedding because my dad's getting married in March, he completely flipped out. He's like, no, you're not wearing a tux. I'm like, why? I can wear whatever I want. How does this affect you? Yeah. It doesn't affect you. It's the fact that you're only one of your children are coming to your wedding. My brother refuses to go to his wedding because my brother refuses the fact that my parents are separated. And my brother's almost 21. So it's the fact that one of your children are still going to your wedding that it shouldn't matter what I wear. It's the fact that that is still going on to this day, that people are being judged for what they want to do, and it has nothing to do with you.
No, it reminds me of, I spend way too much time reading advice columns too, just because they're fun. But I remember one from a few years ago. This couple was in this nice neighborhood, and a gay couple moved in, and they said they had nothing against those people. They just didn't approve of their lifestyle, quote unquote. We're not even going to go into what's wrong with that statement. But so whenever they had, a barbecue or a cookout or whatever, they would invite, the rest of the neighborhood like they always did, but they would exclude this couple. And at one point, the reason they sent this letter was, I've explained what, the background. And suddenly they realized they would see other neighbors having other get-togethers, and they would invite this gay couple, but they wouldn't invite the couple that sent the message. And they're like, we don't understand what's going on. We've been friends with these people for years. I mean, it's our right to, we can choose who comes on our property. We can choose who comes in our house, in our home. We just don't agree with this lifestyle. Therefore, we don't want to support them and have them around us. But suddenly everyone around us is excluding us from things, and what's going on? And I really had to wonder, is this a real letter? Did they make it up, or are these people this stupid? I'm not I'm not really sure what's going on. Yes, you have the
Probably
right
that.
to you do. Okay, freedom of speech. Yes, you do have the right to voice your opinions, but you aren't free from consequences of those opinions. Just because you tell me something doesn't mean I automatically have to agree with you. So yes, if it is your house, you can not allow this couple into your home. But clearly your neighbors aren't cool with that. They don't agree with your stance. And they don't want a homophobe in their homes. That's their right. So they do have the right to exclude you. And I really hope that was a fake letter. I'm willing to bet it wasn't. But people like that just I don't get it. I don't understand how you can't see that hypocrisy, but in this political scene, there's a lot of people that do stuff like that, and it seems to be par for the course now.
Well, I do know in some social circles, things are being done to mitigate, stop, slap. Yeah, that wasn't cool and you're not getting away with it.
Yeah.
One of my social circles, I'm in a medieval history group.
Ooh.
And
that sounds neat.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And we had issues with a few individuals. Sadly, few of these issues happened within days of each other.
Oh, wow.
Across the U.S.
Wow.
And our board of directors came down and went, did you all forget your manners? Whap, whap, whap. And they went through and removed like 8 people within 4 days.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
They're not allowed to play in our group.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called an R&D, revoke of something. Basically, you don't get to play with us ever again.
Yeah.
Well, this was so bad. We're talking one person made a belt with swastikas on it. One person gave privilege to a KKK member. Like it was just crazy. Well, particularly with the swastika incidents, the organization actually contacted sister groups that they're not part of us, but they're kind of our cousins.
Mm-hmm.
And these people even got banned in all the cousin groups.
Oh, wow.
They can't play anywhere in the world.
That's awesome.
Medieval game.
That's really awesome. That's really important nowadays. And I mean, BLM is pushing this ideal, but it can span beyond race. It's not enough to be not racist or not homophobic or not whatever it is. If you see something, you need to say something. You need to take action.
Yes.
You have to be anti-racist. You have to be anti-homophobic. You have to, you can't be just passive. So if someone makes a homophobic comment in a group of people, I mean, if you don't say anything, if you kind of nervously chuckle it off, you can't do any of that anymore. You have to say, dude, that's not cool. You have to let that person know that isn't acceptable.
I think cons need to be up on this as well. Like, if one con bans somebody with evidence, like for pedophilia or something like that, other cons need to do the same. If somebody's being racist, we should not encourage, we should not allow that person, and unless they change. We got to be open for change, but. Because I'm going to be honest, I used to be racist when I was younger because I grew up in a racist family. But once I got to college, I realized like everything's different, and I now have black friends. But it's the fact that we should be allowing change, but we should also be stopping it from happening in cons, because I see it at cons all the time. I've gone to several cons and I see racism, sexism, gender, sex, all that. And it's just, we need to step up.
And I understand some people, for some people, it is very much ignorance.
Yes.
If someone says like they're, the microaggressions are a big thing now for people to learn. Just offhanded comments that are offensive. Some people genuinely don't mean to be offensive. They do not know. In my undergrad, I was one of those people that would show prospective students around the school. So, this dorm, that. And so at the end of that, I had to go to the student center. That's where we took all the families. And I didn't know any other guides. So I just kind of sat by myself. And white family sits at my table because it's pretty much empty except for me. And they of course, asked name, rank, and numbers. And they asked me my name, they asked me my grade, and they asked me my major. Those 3 questions. That's it. So I answer those questions. 4th question is, so you're the first in your family to go to college?
Oh my God.
Again, they asked me my name. They asked me my grade. They asked me my major.
They could have asked you
that's literally all they said to me besides hi. So, and I got to get them back a little bit. No, actually, my mom went here and now she's a physician, and my dad went here and now he's a civil engineer. So I got to poke that at them a little bit. But in that case, I don't think they were being malicious. It's just something that came in, that it's something they believe. So I was taken aback at the time, but I didn't get too angry because I'm like, it's just ignorance. And true ignorance can be remedied with education. It's the people who are malicious. Those are the people I don't know what you do with them, because they're doing it on purpose. They know what they're doing is wrong, but they do not care. And I don't know if you should waste energy on those people because they clearly do not want to learn.
I think a large part of that is also the local community that you're in.
That's true.
Because again, when I say South Florida, I mean, my house is one of the last buildings you see before you start entering the Keys. So a lot of people in that area, they don't get to go to college. It's a very poor area. So the question of, so are you the first, is actually a moment of pride.
Yeah.
Versus a passive aggressive attack. Also, like how Jay, you mentioned earlier about how most cases we see are white males. My high school was the one that had the Haitian versus Dominican versus off the raft Cubans. Blood gangs. Once a year, we would have a massive gang war at the high school.
Oh, wow.
Against those 3 cultures.
Wow.
It was just the norm. It was the normal. So for my upbringing, I saw more from what would be deemed the minorities. But our local census actually had Caucasian as a minority.
Oh, yeah. Number-wise, yeah.
Number-wise.
Yeah.
I actually worked at a job. We got fined for having too many minorities hired.
That's odd. That's just weird to me.
We had 40 employees. I was the Caucasian.
Oh, wow.
Everyone else was Hispanic or African American. So we were fined for having too many minorities.
To me, that's just strange.
We all laughed. All of us laughed.
But then also companies get money if they hire people with disabilities. So I guess, or people of minorities. So so you get fined for having too many, but you get paid for having some?
That's a very weird. It's
because that's
Oh
what they make
God.
you. That's what they make you at when they ask you when you apply for a job, or they ask you questions.
Yeah.
What is your minority, or do you have any disabilities and stuff?
Yeah.
And I know that they get paid for that. It's just I did not expect you to get fined for having too many minorities.
No.
I'm just
It's like you. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
It's like you have to have. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, Bobby just
There we go,
covered it.
Bobby.
You need to have the right amount. We've got one or two. Okay, we got a black guy. We've got an Asian woman. We've got a Latino. Okay, that's enough. No, we don't need the rest of you. We're good. We're good. That's how it feels to me. This is a weird tangent, but I'm thinking of housing, like housing neighborhoods, especially back in the day when white flight was happening and the people were leaving the cities and going and basically creating the burbs. But and in my own neighborhood, there are several black families, but it is majority white. My parents' neighborhood, exact same way. It's like regarding like neighborhoods where people live, there seems to be like a small, like a weird line where, okay, we have one minority too many. I'm leaving this neighborhood. It's going to go to crap. It's a very weird phenomenon, but it's and no one knows what that where that line is, but you know when you hit it, when people and white people start leaving in droves, that's when you've hit okay, there's too many minorities here. I gotta nope. This is officially the ghetto. I have to get out. Was this panic movie over 24 minutes ago?
No.
I wasn't sure if it was an hour or a half hour.
No, it was supposed to be a half hour because I didn't know it was supposed to be this successful. But I'm thinking of making a Telegram group for all of us to chat. So if you want to add me on Telegram, my thing's X1BitJ.
X1BitJ. Okay.
I think it'll be a very awesome, cool group to have just to chat about, any political, not political, any like.
Oh, I can get political.
I can too. I'm on TikTok and I could be very political. I can get political with people that are, like. Yeah.
I think there's also an issue with activism too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to have a constant fight because my original business name was Gypsy's Weavings.
Oh, okay.
And my fursona and my medieval sona and pretty much all of my hobbies get lumped into a particular family tree of Middle Eastern families.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't want me to translate Arabic. But you know what the Arabic translated to? Gypsy. They were the very reason the word gypsy was created. But when you hear the word, who do you think of?
The Romani, I believe.
Yeah. And the word is a slur for the Romani.
Slur. Yeah.
But they aren't a slur for the Gwazi.
I'm gonna have to end the panel here because they're bothering me about it in chat because I went 30 minutes over.
Okay.
But
well, it shouldn't have been 30 minutes in the first place. It should have been at least an hour.
I'm sorry, I didn't expect this to be a successful. So,
okay.
Add me on Telegram, X1BitJ. I will make a group for just us to chat about things. We're not gonna make it political, but we'll make it like just chat about things because I think.
Okay.
All right. So.
Clean my hedgehog first, and I'll get on that then.
All right. See you guys later.
See ya. Thank you so much.
No problem.
How do I leave? Oh, leave that button.
Oh, leave.